Business Now, analysts are predicting that an investment in South African local shares and bonds is bound to deliver the best returns over the next 12 to 24 months, while international equities and foreign bonds will probably lag the returns the local bourse and bond market promises. Now, asset managers have researched into where investors can find the best value now and where to look for the best returns over the next few months. And they found that shares of local companies are likely to outperform those of international companies simply because local shares are on a lower rating than foreign equities. This is especially true with regards to those ever popular US technology stocks. Now, joining me on the news to further discuss the investment is investment analyst at Naira, Ajibola Akamo. Thank you so much, Ajibola, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Ajibola. Now let's talk about the equities and income markets. I'm going to read out some returns, and I would like you to walk us through how these returns will work. Now, the global equities are expected to return only 10%, while the government bonds are expected to return 3%, and global corporate bonds 4.5%. Meanwhile, the cash invested offshore, a very low 1.5%. Can you walk us through how this works? What do these returns tell us?
Well, in my own candid opinion, the returns are telling us a very, very good story because, major economies in the world are heading to double-digit inflation. We have emerging economies like Nigeria heading, we're literally heading towards a 20% inflation rate. So your value for money is in trouble. And what do I mean by this? Although these investment vehicles are, giving this percentage returns, for instance, if you're living in the Nigerian economy, earning in Naira, and you have a 10% return in a year, it just means that your value of money has only grown by 10%, whereas the inflation rate has basically depreciated your value for money at 18% plus. So that spells trouble for value for money. Although you're increasing in the quantity, the value for money is going down. And even in, like I said, developed economies, the US is at a 9.1% inflation rate. The UK is more or less pushing towards double digits as well. Major economies are pushing towards double digits. And that is not, we're not seeing an end to that because of, the global supply chain crisis that we're experiencing, and as well as the actions of policymakers to try and tame, inflation rates. So riskier assets are not even quite invited. So personally, I do question, the 10% return you mentioned on equities, which is very, very unlikely to see today. But, here and there, you get to see outliers where, you can get 10% or even more than that in the market.
All right, Ajibola. Thank you for that. Now, let me also ask this. Now, the domestic equities are expected to give a return of around 15%, and local bonds just over 10%, and the cash only 5%. Now, these are very impressive projections, but what I'm curious to know is if the equity traders from other markets trade in the Johannesburg Bourse.
Okay, so yes, equity traders all over the world trade every single market. Thankfully for technology like the Bloomberg terminal, everybody has access to every single market. And beyond that, the South African market gives, the opportunity for players to come in and actually play in the market and, enjoy some very, very fantastic returns. So if the question is if the foreign players come into the South African market, yes, they do. The South African market is one of the best performing markets in terms of market size. Although the market is down year to date by a little bit over 5%, we're looking at the market capitalization still a little bit over $1 trillion, which is equivalent to 20 trillion rands. So ultimately, the returns in the local market or is more or less driven by local participation because the foreign markets, everybody is running away from risky assets. But ultimately, all traders do trade, the local market and every other market.
Okay, now one more thing we would like to get clarification on is international equities are still a bit on the expensive side, and global bonds offer a little value as well. Now, is this a reason why the local investors seem to be dominating the South African market?
Yeah, you could say that's the reason. The reason why I'll say this is, when you're looking at it from the perspective of the stronger, US dollar that we've been seeing, we're seeing the US dollar over 100 basis points. That's the dollar index, which is the DXY. We're seeing that strength in the US dollars, and yesterday's unemployment numbers also, and unemployment rate and employment numbers in the US also boosted the dollar. Yesterday we saw 528,000 jobs added in the US. We also saw unemployment rate come down from 3.6% to 3.5%. Very, very, very strong number. So it is a major factor, yes, but not necessarily the only factor that are encouraging local participation. In emerging markets all over the world, including South Africa, Nigeria, and the likes, we've seen a very, very large participation in local investors, and that's a result of the high costs of goods and services that we're seeing, which is translating into the returns of these companies that are listed on these platforms as a result of transfer pricing, and
All right.
there are better returns in the markets there. Thank you.
Okay. Investment analyst at Nairametrics, Ajibola Akamo, thank you so much for the clarifications. I'm sure we all learned something.
Thank you so much.